welcome to the Hallmark Keys podcast. We are really excited today. We are here talking with another author. We love getting a chance to talk to authors, and we have author Melody Carlson here. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Bree is here.
Hey, everybody.
And Melody, thank you so much for coming back and talking with us.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. So how was your 2020? How did that end up working out for you? Your holidays? Did you have a good end of the year since we last talked to you?
It's been very interesting.
Yeah.
I can't remember if I told you or not, but we were building a house in the age of COVID, and we thought the house would be done, idealistically by Christmas, but I'm not like last Christmas, and we're just finishing it up right now. So it's been a long, hard haul.
Oh man.
Because we're doing it ourselves mostly, and we're like crazy pioneers.
Yeah. I was gonna say, you could never trust contractors. When I was building my house, they told me so many deadlines that it was, and I had everything all packed up. I had movers ready, and nope, it's not done. And it's not done. And it's not done.
Oh, so, and it's even worse with COVID. I mean, because
I'm sure
we're our own contractors. So, but the people that are working for us to do things, like our electrician got COVID, and then supplies don't come, and it's ongoing. But it's a good lesson in patience, and that's not my best virtue. So.
Y'all are making me nervous because I have been down such the HGTV rabbit hole lately. Like, I'm watching the show now called Cheap Old Houses, and I'm like telling my husband, like, let's buy an old house and renovate it. And now I'm like, maybe not.
Well, somebody told me,
or maybe wait a little while, because like right now lumber prices are the highest they've ever been. And it's just thanks. Everything that you would need is hard to get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, when I was getting my house built, somebody told me that plan on signing for your house 30 days after they install the cabinets in the kitchen. And it was almost to the day. I was like, I should have just listened to that lady. She was absolutely correct. So I don't know if that will be the case for you, but.
Well, we're getting our countertops this week, so who knows? But see, we're doing the finished work and stuff ourselves, so we only have ourselves to blame if it takes forever. But I am going to stake a claim. We will be there by Christmas. I really think we'll be there by October, but who knows?
Well, you're so prolific in your writing career that you really should use this as a catalyst for your next book.
Well, you know what? I've already written a book. When you mentioned, or Bree mentioned HGTV, that came out this spring, and it's called Home Sweet Tiny Home. And it's this woman who downsizes, and it starts with her binging on HGTV shows, tiny home shows. And she just decides to get rid of her big mansion, which is a whole nother story. But I use these building experiences, because this is not our first rodeo. It's like but it will be our last one, I hope. But we've built and remodeled over and over for 43 years of marriage. We've always been in a project.
Yeah. Some of the photos you have on your website of the houses are just gorgeous. It looks like where you live is gorgeous too.
Well, Oregon is very pretty. We have, it's not the perfect place to live, but there's a lot of natural beauty around us. So we love that.
I always say nothing tests a marriage like putting together a piece of IKEA furniture, but I think that building a house is probably even more so.
Yeah, it's a daily test. We were with friends last night, and I was telling them that, and they've known us through a lot of these projects, but I said, if we survive this, we can survive anything, and we can see the end of the tunnel. So I think we're going to survive.
I have a question that I kind of want to start, like a writing question. Can we start there?
Yes, please.
Of course.
So, I mean, I love your website. I love like the beautiful like mountains in the back and stuff like that. And I really love your writing tips for beginning writers. And you said something along the lines of like, I mean, obviously, if you want to write fiction, you need to read tons of fiction, but then you even more specifically, you said to make sure that you're immersing yourself in the kind of writing you would aspire to write. So for your particular, like the stories you like to tell, what were some of the stories that you were reading that kind of inspired your journey?
Well, like we're talking years back, of course, but I liked like Maeve Binchy and Elizabeth Berg and women who wrote smaller stories about people, but they made them bigger. Rosamund Pilcher. And I feel like these are sort of old-fashioned writers in a way, but they still hold true. Their writing is still substantial. I like Jane Austen, people who wrote about maybe primarily women's relationships, but it always goes into the whole world, but in a small way. And I don't tell big saga kind of stories. I tell stories about relationships and people and growing and changing, and yeah. So those were the ones that early on, they really did inspire me.
You feel like it has been harder or easier to write in the pandemic and quarantine and everything?
Yeah, well, because we've been house building too, it's kind of, that adds a complication. And so my office became, because what we did was we sold a house and then we're living in these apartments above a garage that's on the property that we're building on. I don't know if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But my office became what used to be a book storage room. So it's like this little cellar, I call it the dungeon, down below, and it's just dark and dreary. So just having that, it's hard for me to go down there. I feel like a baby about it, but I'm used to having, windows and things, but that's where everything's all set up. So I have to go down there and write. So it's been harder, but I have managed to write. I think I'm on my third or fourth book since pandemic, maybe even more than that. I mean, since pandemic, I was just thinking in the last year, but yeah, but you know what the good part about it is it makes me forget about COVID when I'm writing, because it's, I just go to another world. So in a way I get to escape it. Unfortunately, I get to escape it in my dungeon. So
another one of the things you talk about is that I loved was that you said something along the line of you have to allow yourself to write poorly to try to like turn off that inner editor. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, the friends we were with last night, he's an editor of many more years than I've been a writer, but he's trying to write a book, and he was asking me, and I said, I'm not going to say his name, but I said, hey, you turn off your editor. And he's like, well, how do you do that? And he was talking about wanting to write stories from his childhood, because he has a real interesting childhood. And I said, just pretend like you're gathering your children or your grandchildren around the fire and you're just telling them a story. But it's like he has a really hard time turning off his inner editor, because that's what he does for a living. But I think all writers, when they first start out, we want to create something perfect. We want it to read beautifully, and we get stuck, just even on the first lines, or we get stuck in the first chapter. And then I know so many people who go back over and over and over the first chapter. They're so happy that they got the first chapter. They go over it so many times that maybe it, does get kind of perfect, but then they can't go on because they've already created this habit of making it so-called perfect. And what I tell people is, chances are, if you manage to finish that book, you're going to go back and throw away the first chapter anyway, because usually we don't even know what we're talking about in the first chapter. It's like the story isn't complete enough to even know what it is. So it's like, yeah, if you can just pour it out, then you've got something to go back and edit. If you can't get it out, why bother editing, at all in the beginning? That and I do tell people that. I think because when I first started writing, I had so little time. It just forced me to do it. I had such a burning desire to write. I just jumped onto literally my typewriter to start with, which, if you can imagine. And then after that, it was the early dinosaur computers, which were really cumbersome. But I would just force myself just to get through it, because I only had, like a Saturday afternoon or something, to get all my writing in that I wanted to get done. And so I worked fast and furious and carelessly.
Now, you've written so many books. Do you ever get like burnout where you're just like, I have nothing, that's it. All the stories have been told. I don't know what else to write about.
Yeah. I try to tell myself there's no such thing as, I don't even like to use the words, but, just getting that blank, burnout, whatever you want to call it. But because it's like, I think you can delude yourself into thinking that you have it. And I'm afraid that if I do that, I'll believe that I have it. So I kind of haven't allowed myself even to think that. And then I just always think there's as many stories as there are people on the planet. And all I have to do is tap into a character and start caring about that character and creating some problems for that character and wanting that character to get past his problems. And then, and then writing just happens. So, I definitely have been trying to slow it down over the past, maybe 4 or 5 years. Instead of being a book of the month club, I'm down to, doing about maybe, my goal is like 3 or 4 a year. So, and I know that probably sounds a lot of people.
That is still so admirable, I will say.
I can't believe it. It's amazing. Well, let's talk about one of your new books, Christmas in the Alps. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about it? Yeah.
Well, and see, that was written during the pandemic. And I think I just wanted to get away, the one thing I really haven't liked in the pandemic is just that being unable to go or do. And it's not like that we do so much, but we do like to go out in the motorhome and things like that. But we were also trapped because we're building this house. So I can't blame it completely on the pandemic. But I just thought, well, where would I like to go? And I've been in France like just twice. I've been to Europe more than that, but to France proper just twice. And the first time I was there, I was very young and I was actually traveling around the world. And I was only 19, if you can believe that, but by myself. And I had a Eurail pass, and it was like October. And my favorite part I spent a month in Europe. My favorite part was on the train going through the Alps and those little alpine villages. And I just remember kind of that twilight time of day and the little glowing houses with, I wanted to stop and visit, but I didn't really have the luxury to do that because it was kind of off season and I didn't know where I'd stay and all of that. But it was always there in me. I would love to, explore those little villages. So I set this story in a French alpine village that is fictional, but it's because it's a small, when you're writing about a smaller town, you don't want to really use a real name anyway. But I used the Arve River because it goes through that part of the Alps, kind of between Switzerland and France. And I gave the town that name, which doesn't really exist. But yeah, so I took myself away out of my dungeon to Alpine France, and it was a fun little trip.
Yeah, I really liked that aspect of the book, that it was, there was an escapist aspect to it. But how did you come up with this whole idea of this sort of treasure hunt that she's on?
I don't even remember exactly why it hit me, the premise, but I just thought, what would take a person who had flying phobias to France in the middle of winter at Christmas time? What would it take? And so, yeah, she very early in the book, she's cleaning out her grandmother's has passed away, and she's kind of had this different upbringing. That her mother had her kind of as a teenager or a young adult and kind of gave her over to the grandmother and then just disappeared. And so the grandmother's been raising her. But she also has this French great grandmother who came over from France during World War II. And so anyway, they've both passed on, but her grandmother who kind of raised her, she's cleaning out her house and her friend is helping her, and they find this unopened letter that's from the great grandmother who came over from France. And she's her namesake. They're both Simone's. And the great grandmother is saying, there's a treasure for Simone. I want her to go to our France and find it. And, Simone just thinks this is crazy, but her friend is like, no, you've got to do this, and so the friend becomes this propelling force to get Simone to actually do it and do it during Christmas holidays. So that's kind of how it takes off to get her over there. And then when she gets over there, it's a very interesting treasure hunt. And here's the truth, because this is how I write. I didn't know what the treasure was myself until the end of the book, towards the end. So for me, it was like, what is it? Well, where is it? How will they find it?
Oh,
but they
funny.
do.
So you are a pantser, not a plotter.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like I invented that word too.
Very good. There's quite a bit of French in the book. Did you just have to look that up, or do you speak some French, or?
A very, very little French, but it's one of those languages that, like, while I was in France and I'd be reading things and hearing things and stuff like that, I felt like I could have picked it up. It just felt comfortable. And I do have, some French ancestry, so I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but it feels familiar to me. And it was really fun looking at words and listening to them on the audio. And, it's so amazing with the technology that we have now, as it makes it so much easier to research things. And so it helped me a lot. But yeah, if you ask me the meaning of a lot of those French words that I use, I'd go, I don't know. I have to look it up.
Yeah.
I loved how like it was refreshing, because I like Rachel, I like obviously started the podcast because we love Hallmark movies, and like during the holiday season, you see a lot of focus on like, appreciating and loving where you are. And I just love travel stories set during the holidays. It's just something you don't see a lot of. So I really loved like that travel aspect to it. I just think when we get those occasional gems, it's so much fun.
Yeah. And that's interesting to hear. It makes me, and actually we've got one in the future set up that's a travel one too. So that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I really liked Meet Cute, the whole thing of she's terrified of flying. They end up sitting next to each other, and that whole like dynamic was really fun.
Yeah, he was an interesting character, and I love it when he just disappears, and I won't say what happened.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's like, what?
Yeah, well, and then when she gets to France, she meets Noel, and I thought that for a while I thought, oh, is he actually the love interest? Because they had kind of a fun dynamic, but then different things.
I know. I think that was a red herring, but I don't want the readers to hear that, so don't listen. Because who knows? He's a nice guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a fun surprise. Kind of made it interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked him.
Yeah, he was good. And then, so you have her aunt in France, who still has this grudge against the great grandma. And how did you come up with that whole character and like the French characters?
Oh, I'm not even really sure. I knew that because Simone, the great grandmother, that there'd been such a break in her not returning to France. Not, there was some, we knew there's a untold story, but we didn't know what it was. And so when we got young Simone over there, it's like we have to, and like I said, I'm exploring this as I go. We have to have that reason for what the break was. And so the break was the great grandmother Simone's younger sister she'd been jealous of her sister because she felt like, in a sense, that her sister had stolen her beau. I mean, he wasn't really her beau, but in her heart as a young, I think she was only 15 at the time. Can't really remember. But she had, rescued this flyer and gone to all this trouble for him. And I'm going to put in a plug here just because it's christianbooks.com has the bonus chapter that actually tells even a little bit more of the great aunt's story of what happened, which is kind of interesting because she reveals things that aren't complete. You get enough, what happened in the book, but she tells it in even more detail in the bonus chapter. So if anybody really wants to hear more, they could get it from christianbooks.com. But anyway, yeah, she has a real grudge, but I know she regrets it too, because you know how it is when sisters part as you get older, all those things do seem a little more trivial, but sometimes people get trapped in, that kind of bitterness, and she became trapped. And then after her sister dies, she feels like she doesn't even have a chance to restore it. And so I think it's kind of lovely how Simone, the young Simone, is like a bridge between her great grandma and her great aunt.
Mm-hmm. How did you decide on that name, Simone?
I just kind of went looking at French names, and it stuck out. I don't even know. It just felt good.
What
and
I
I've
love
used
is
so many names in books. It's like, it's
I
hard.
love the name
And
Simone.
I love that too. And it was like a name that I had never used before. So I was like, hey, this is good.
So I love that. I mean, I love romance novellas. I think anybody that doesn't think you can feel satisfied with a short story just needs to read romance novellas, because I mean, I just think that what you all do with them is incredible. And like, you have so much going on in the book, and it's such a short book. So can you talk a little bit about cramming in a lot in a short amount? I mean, I know that I've seen that you wrote for Harlequin's Love Inspired, which I'm a category romance lover. So I was like, maybe, that kind of she already has that experience of writing shorter titles, but can you speak to writing novellas and kind of the process of, I mean, I could have easily read 200 more pages of this book, but the way that you put it all together, it's like, it's perfect. So can you talk a little bit about length and making sure you get in all the details? But I mean, did you know you wanted it to be a novella? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I know. Those are such great questions. And you're absolutely right. In the telling of a novella is different than a full-blown novel. And and I've written a lot more full-blown novels than I have novellas, but I started doing Christmas novellas really about 20 years ago, and realized actually the first one I did was even before a Christmas novella. It was, but so it's like there's a different tempo to it. But I honestly couldn't even really wrap my head around it, and I hadn't actually read one because I don't think there were that many going on 20. My first one came out 20 years ago, so I think I started writing it even before that. So it was kind of just, let's see how this works. and then I've done, I think I'm on my 22nd one right now, because it'll be for 2022. But it's a different pace, it's a different feeling. But something happens when I sit down to do a Christmas novella that I just sort of lock into that smaller, lesser page count. And you don't want it to be a smaller story. You still want it to be a big story. But it is different. And for somebody who's doing it for the first time, especially if you're a pantser, you really have to pace yourself, and it also, if you're used to writing longer books, because I do some, that are, 350 pages long, and a novella is a lot shorter. But, I did children's books too, and I did YA books, and I even did a few, middle reader books. So I guess maybe I kind of intuitively knew, how to still have it be a full story, but condense it. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
You have done a lot. Yeah. I mean, you have chick lit, you have books for kids, some books that look like they're like a little historical, like the Dear Daphne series. So, I mean, can you talk, what inspired writing across those different genres? And was it just, wanting to have, different like readerships being expanded? Were these different stories just on your heart and you're like, I'm just going to go for it? Because I think as a non-writer, it's like, to me, it looks like, okay, you have to pick a lane and kind of, stick in it. But then like, I see you and it's so inspiring because it's like, well, she's written across multiple genres.
I know. And, publishers really hate that, I have to say. And publicists hate it even more, really, because they can't really pigeonhole you in that one genre. Yeah. I know. And I apologize for that all the time. I don't anymore. I used to all the time. Now it's just like, I'm sorry, that's who I am. But here's the real true honest answer is I would, because I'm so prolific and I love writing, I would get bored if I had to just keep writing the same genre. And even when I did the love inspired ones, I think I did, I can't remember, I think it was 4. I don't really remember. And it was in the suspense. And I liked it at first, and I liked the second one. And I think, as it went on, by the last one, I didn't want to do anymore. I just didn't, it was just too formula for me. And even though novellas, I don't even want to say a novella has a formula because to me they don't, but there's more freedom there. But if I had to keep doing the same genre over and over, obviously I would not have written as many books because they'd be sick of me by now. And I'd be sick of me too. But it really was just because I have a lot of other interests. And there was a time when I thought, I'd never write a historical, but then I did some of those and they were so fun. And I felt like I learned so much as I was writing that, I actually still have one more in a trilogy that I need to finish before the year's out. I'm reminding myself going, oh no, that's right. I still have to do that. But it's fun because it just takes me away. Kind of like the way this one took me to France, that was just fun, and it makes writing is fun, but it makes it even more fun.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast.
Terry Ferris, author of You Belong With Me and Until I Met You, returns readers to the charming town of Heritage, Michigan in the Restoring Heritage series finale.
Fans have enjoyed immersing themselves in the complicated, funny, and endearing lives of this small town.
And Since You've Been Gone, Ferris offers another romantic tale where sparks fly when two people at odds in the past must learn to trust each other to ensure a better future.
Not only do you get one great romance in Since You've Been Gone, but it also has a sweet secondary relationship, which includes themes of faith, forgiveness, and love.
Pick up Since You've Been Gone wherever you purchase your books or use our affiliate link.
For more information on the Restoring Heritage series, visit https://www.terryferris.com/books.
That's www.terryferris.com/books.
Well, I wanted to ask, so Simone goes to Paris for the first part of her trip, spends a couple days there, and then she goes to Havre. And so I was wondering what was like to write about both Paris and Havre, especially in the pandemic where you can't travel to write about those places.
Well, I loved Paris, but I was there the first time in October, which it really was gorgeous in October. In fact, the second time I went there was in July, and I didn't like it nearly as much, although I spent more time there in July, saw more. But it was just in October, it was just romantic, and it's kind of like that the streets were wet and the air smelled good, and just that whole, your senses are just, and plus just being amazed by it, and the weather was lovely, even though it was October, it was just lovely. So, but of course I've never been there in December. And so I started reading about it in December, and it just sounded magical. It just, people that were there were saying, it was like the best Christmas lights, the best decorations ever. It's just like everything that we imagine, to be not that Christmas is only about decorations, but Paris is beautiful. So we want it to be beautiful. And the photos that I found, they were just beautiful. And I thought, she has to experience Paris, and her friend told her that too. You have to see Paris before you get to the Alps. So I just thought, give her. And then I thought it was also interesting the fact that she's there alone and she's thinking about Kyle, who disappeared. And, her heart, is growing warmer towards this guy that she only knew for a while. But, that's life. People do that. And I just thought that was kind of fun. And the first time I was in Paris, I wasn't totally alone because I met a guy that sort of helped me to the train station because he spoke French. And when you're in France, nobody wants to speak English to you, even if they can.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was just fun to play there a little bit.
I haven't been to France. I've only been to one tiny part of it when I was a teenager. But I would love to go, and I would love to go to Paris sometime. just see all the bridges and go to the cafes and all of the. I've just seen Ratatouille too many times. I think it's what it comes down to.
Yeah, it's just, if you like aesthetic beauty and architecture and just even the gardens and the river. I mean, it's just the whole city, I think, is just beautifully put together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was fun to have both places, and that must have been fun just to get that escape in your writing during the pandemic.
Yeah,
it was, and it was just fun to remember what it was like being, in Paris. And I did go to some of the smaller towns in France, but just never got to stay in the Alpine village, which just it felt Christmassy. I mean, a snowy Alpine village in December, that's Christmassy.
Well, I think that now that things are more opened up, I think that now you need to write a sequel, and you can have that be justification for your for your trip to the French Alps.
Well, the one thing I have longed to do too is to get my husband over there on one of the river barge tours. Have you heard about those?
Mm-hmm.
Where they just go from town to town, and you have your bicycles and you get off in each town. But then I found out my husband. Well, I didn't find out. I know my husband is 6'6" tall, but the barges because they're old. A lot of them are only like 6 feet tall.
Oh no.
So,
I was going to say,
that's not a good idea.
Because I watch a lot of Masterpiece on PBS, and they always have those. This is sponsored by Viking River Cruises.
I know. We just finished watching one, and we kept looking at, and they have the big cruise boats too, but they do the river barges too. And my husband, he hates the idea of going on a big ship. I do too. I've done that, and I don't want to do that again. But these barges look so charming, but nope, I don't think so, unless they've raised the roofs on some of those.
That's tall, 6'6". Holy cow. Yeah.
It has some challenges, I'll tell you.
Play basketball. That tall. That's funny. So I wanted to ask about the food scenes, particularly raclette. It was that had to have been fun to write.
Yeah, well, I was trying to remember things that I actually spent more time in Swiss alpine towns, and because the second time I went on a tour, it was with a tour with my mom. That was the only way we could get her to travel, is if I'd go with her. So I got to experience a lot of alpine towns, not the real little ones, but But anyway, I was trying to think, what are some of the things that we ate there? And I couldn't really, I mean, it always involved cheese and bread and just, all of these lovely things. So I don't know if we really had that dish or not, but when I looked it up and read it, it's like, this sounds good to me. Could I order some up just, to see how it is?
Yeah.
You're getting on your DoorDash,
Yes, but I live in Sisters, Oregon, where we don't even have DoorDash, which is a mountain town. It's a little mountain town. So see, there explains.
You're better off. I have spent an obscene amount of money on DoorDash.
Oh, it sounds good a lot of times.
It's bad. But yeah, have you ever had raclette?
I have not. No.
It's they have this giant block of cheese.
Oh,
it's like a Gruyere or something like that, and they literally they get it hot, and then they use this kind of knife to scrape off the melted cheese from the big block of cheese, and then they have all different kinds of crudité that you dip it in. It's delicious. It
sounds amazing. I mean, I was sold at cheese, and then you said they get it hot, and I'm like, oh, melted cheese. It's like the best thing ever.
Right.
Yes.
You can't go wrong with melted cheese and dipping stuff in it.
Perfect food.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I really think that would be fun to write about, because you don't have to deal with all the calories. You just still get to enjoy. Although I probably would end up overeating. If I was writing
it made
about...
me want to go find some for sure.
Yeah.
But where I live, no, not so much.
Yeah. So do you have a hard time coming up with like new ways to do the tropes in these romantic books? Like, for instance, the meet cute here, where they meet and then he goes off to Oslo, and you're like, what is going on? Where did he go? I mean, do you have a hard time with that? Like coming up with sort of new ways to do those kinds of things?
Yeah, it is. And I try not to think about it too much because I probably would get overwhelmed trying to think, okay, did I do this before? Did it,
Mhm.
And then I think, how many ways are there
Yeah.
to meet up and I remember long ago, somebody told me, and it was someone in Romance Writers of America, and I actually had won a Rita, but the book that won the Rita, I admitted wasn't really like a romance, especially back. This was like in 1998, and this friend who was a little more experienced than I was, a writer editor, said, "Well, I'm going to say it the way she said it because it'll make you laugh." She goes, "They have to eat meat and break up," and I'm like, "Eat meat like they're carnivores?" And she goes, "No, I mean they have to meet and then eat and then break up."
Right.
That was
pretty accurate.
but eat meat? Really? What do you mean? No, meat, eat, and then break up. And I'm like, but I don't try to do that. But I mean, at the time I thought, okay, there really is, there's this expected way that it happens, but I do try to keep it different. But, there's only so many ways that you can meet somebody and get things going. Yeah.
Yeah. Meet, eat, break up. And then get back together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the best part, when it's like these two people are never going to be together. They're just never going to be together. And then they're like, okay, we're going to be together. And then the dark moment happens and you're like, I just want them to be together.
Yeah. It's like the like Elizabeth refusing Darcy. You're just like, no, how's this going to work? And then she gets the letter. So
the bigger novel that I have coming out in the next spring, and I'm actually doing the screenplay for it right now.
Oh, wow.
And because I don't know if you guys remember the Happy Camper movie, but book, but it may be becoming a movie here very shortly. So in the excitement of that, they said, could I adapt this one? It's called Looking for Leroy, and it doesn't come out, like I said, until March. But in that one, as I'm adapting it, I'm like going, wow, it takes a really long time for them to meet, which is going to be, the thing is, they knew each other originally, and then like all this time has passed, and she's like looking for him in these vineyards in Sonoma, California. But he's living, you see him and his life, and he's reading these old letters from her, and but they don't really meet up until quite a long ways into the story, which is, I've never done that before. So it's kind of interesting and different, but you feel the chemistry, even though you're watching both of them separately.
Yeah.
Which will be interesting. We'll see. Yeah.
That is always interesting to see play out. Yeah. I can't remember the title, but it was like one of the Hallmark movies from last Christmas. They spent like the entire movie apart, and I loved it. I don't know about the rest of the movie.
Delivered by Christmas.
Yes.
Oh, that was my favorite.
What was it called?
Delivered by Christmas. It was so good.
Yeah.
But they did a great job.
Like that.
Yeah.
Because it's not till kind of the end. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they were separated, but they were communicating because they were talking on the phone. And so it didn't feel separated as far as their relationship growing. Yeah. That one was so good. I loved it.
I'll have to see if I can find that one. Yeah.
Yeah. It was really good. Well, we're excited about the new book, and congratulations.
Yes.
And we will have a link to our affiliate link to people if they want to purchase the book and check it out. You should. But we like to end our interviews with some fun, silly questions, and we already did the holiday questions previously for you, so these are just the regular questions.
Okay.
So First question, what is the best ice cream flavor?
Jamocha almond fudge.
Oh, you had that ready to go. Yeah. That's good.
Well, the thing is, I don't really like ice cream that much. I know I feel bad saying it because people are like, "Oh, how can you not like ice?" And my husband loves ice cream. But you know, what my second favorite one is vanilla.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's classic.
There's nothing better than a classic hot fudge sundae, in my opinion. Vanilla
Yeah,
ice
I
cream,
agree. I do
hot
like that.
fudge,
Yeah,
whipped cream, some nuts. That's
some
the
nuts
best.
too.
Yeah. All right. What is your favorite color?
Green.
Mine
Very on
too.
brand.
Yeah.
That's good. Very good. Okay. What music are you into?
Oh man, I like an assortment. It really depends on my mood. I'm trying to think of what I've been listening. What I've been listening to lately is a local guy who's kind of bluegrass. If I'd tell you his name, but nobody would know it. But his name is Dennis McGregor.
Ah,
But
cool.
we have a really good folk festival here in Sisters where I live, and so I end up collecting a lot of good kind of folksy, bluesy, jazzy
Oh, I
CDs
love it.
that
Yeah.
I play in my car, and that's where I listen to more music is in my car.
Yeah. Good. All right. What is your go-to date night food when you can go on dates again? Someday.
Again, I know. Like, what? Well, I love salmon, and anything that I can get that's good with salmon, I'm usually happy with. But it's sometimes hard to get. I also like a good trout, but that also can be hard to get, or red meat. But yeah, we haven't had a lot of date nights, I'll say.
I know. Well, once we can go out in public again, what would be your go-to date night activity to go out and do?
Well, we have a sweet restaurant that usually has live music, and we have been there a few times actually because we've sat on the patio, and then we tried to get there's the table they do the live music like inside in the lounge, but they have big doors that they open, so we try to get the table that's still on the patio, but we can still hear the live music, and then we usually, because these guys are really good with steak, they're also really good with mussels. I love mussels.
Oh.
And sometimes they have really good that, you know, it depends, but that would be perfect. Mussels and then just a nice filet mignon makes me happy. I'm craving it. And we have an anniversary coming up like just next week.
You should
go.
go.
To make a reservation.
Yeah. There's a place here that has these black pepper mussels. It's to die for.
Sounds so good.
With crusty garlic bread that you dip into the now I want to go there right now.
Oh yeah, me too.
So good. That like hot broth. Oh,
I know.
The best.
I could just drink it. Yeah.
With you there. Yes. If either of you ever come to Salt Lake, I'll take you. We get black pepper mussels.
Now, where is it you live?
I live near Salt Lake.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
Okay, good. All right. Next question. What which do you pick, dogs or cats?
Well, we've had dogs, and I do love dogs, but I have to admit, as a young person, I had cats, and I loved cats, so I like both.
Which do you prefer, beaches or mountains?
No, that's a hard one too. We live in the mountains, but we used to have a house at the beach, and it's been so hot. Like today, we're going to be 100 again. The beach sounds so wonderful, but we sold our beach cabin because we were too torn apart. It's a 3-hour trip, you know, and it's like, so now we're stuck in the mountains, and now the beach sounds awfully good. I love them both
so much.
So you know, here, can I throw this in because it's kind of
please.
fun. When my husband and I first met, and we weren't going together, we were working in a youth ministry, and they were doing a thing of, you know, where would you like to be right now? And we were no, we weren't. Anyway, he said the mountains, and I was thinking that sounds good, but I said the beach. But that was, you know, a long time ago. So we decided we like them both.
Mm-hmm. All right. What is your favorite holiday to celebrate?
It'd have to be Christmas. I have such great childhood memories, and it's also my husband's birthday.
Oh.
So it makes it kind of special.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to beat Christmas because Christmas has a whole season, or the other holidays, it's just a day or maybe even a week. Christmas is, I
Yeah.
mean, especially in the world of Hallmark, it's like 4 months.
Or maybe year round sometimes.
Yeah, year round.
Yeah.
That's right. All right, last question. What is your favorite Hallmark or romantic movie?
Oh man.
I know.
I can't think of what the name is. You guys probably know. I'm so bad at this. It was the actor and his wife were in it, and it was set in Paris, and it had something to do with keys or locks or something like that.
Oh, Lovelocks.
Lovelocks. Is that right? What is the name of that actor? I can see his face. I just can't think of his name.
Rebecca Romaine.
Yes, Rebecca Romaine and
Oh, yeah.
whatever his name is.
Yeah,
I really liked that.
that was a good one.
Maybe because it was in France.
Mhm.
Sounds
I like that one
sounds like I
too.
need to go there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that one, it's got a good script. It's Tippy and Neil Dabrowski, who are really good, and I liked the whole. It was a good second chance romance type story, I think.
Yeah, and I think I just loved it. It had all the aesthetics. Well, you know what I should have said? I
Mhm.
should have said my own movie. Duh. All summer long on the boat.
Yeah.
I love that movie the most.
Yeah, there you go.
You know what? I do. I just
It is a
didn't want
cute
to be
movie.
self-serving. Well, and I loved the boat and the setting, and yeah, it was cute. But
Mhm.
oops, not really.
There we go. Well, you answered all the questions.
Yeah.
Very good. You have the best. And like I said, we're excited about the new book. Congratulations. We'll have a link if people want to purchase it in the description. Please check that out. And when does it become available?
I think it's September 8th.
Very good.
Right about there. It's coming right up.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, do you have social media or anything like that you'd like to share?
melodycarlson.com. And then, I forget to tell people, you can sign up for my newsletter too. And because there's going to be a lot of promos about it. And I'm going to do things for some book clubs and I don't know what all, but yeah, the newsletter will have more stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, great. We'll have links for that.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, although I've had a hard time getting into Facebook lately. They keep changing everything. I don't know.
I know.
I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, we'll have links for all that in the description. People can go there. And Bree, where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram at Falling for Romance, and I also co-host the Categorically Romance podcast, where we chat category romance.
Very good. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So take a look at that. Also, make sure you're following the podcast to Hallmarkies Pod, Hallmarkies Podcast, all over social media. If you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really appreciate that. And if you're listening on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We also have our page group and merch store. Please take a look at that. We would really, really appreciate it. And thank you so much, Melody. This was so much fun.
Yes, thank you.
To get a chance to talk with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Merry Christmas early.
Yeah, you too. Sweltering over here, but yeah.
That's right. All right. Bye, everyone.